Is carb cycling the best dieting approach for fat loss? In this episode, you're going to learn about what factors to consider when determining what diet is right for you. You'll learn how to cycle your carbs throughout your week based on your training schedule, and you'll learn the most optimal strategy for how to lose weight and build muscle if you're pressed for time. If you're listening on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button. And if you're watching here on YouTube, then make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the newest episodes to get you looking and feeling your best. Today we've got Vince Sant. Vince is the creator of the popular Fat Loss Extreme Fitness program and co-founder of VShred, one of the fastest growing online fitness brands in the world. His mission is to revolutionize women's fitness by providing everyday women with the right tools, weight loss strategies, and programs that can help them achieve their goals. And today we're going to dive into things about how to pick the right dieting plan, when to eat high carbohydrates and when to eat low carbohydrates, and what is the ideal training plan to lose fat if you're pressed for time. So for now, it's time to get closer to your best you with the one and only Vince Sant. All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Vince Sant. We are going to get a master class on fitness and nutrition today, and really excited to dive into a lot of things here, Vince. But the way I want to kick things off is on the nutrition side of things, and I know that you guys at VShred are really big on making sure people do a diet plan that's custom to them and their lifestyle and everything like that. And so what are the different factors that people really need to consider when it comes to having a diet plan or building a diet plan that is tailored to them? Like, sleep might be a factor, how much they exercise, what kind of exercise, their daily activity levels. What are some different things that people need to be considering when they're thinking about which diet or which nutrition approach is most appropriate for them?
Yeah, happy to jump into it. First off, thanks for having me on here. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, as far as like nutrition goes, I think people kind of get too caught up in what they think they should be doing and what's hot in the news right now and what's trending online or what their friend lost 20 pounds doing, rather than figuring out what they're going to be able to do long term for them. Because obviously, like, I'm not going to sit here and bash. I mean, there's a bunch of bad diets out there. Don't get me wrong. The low fat diets, the low carb diets, the fat free diets, just restrictive diets in general, where you don't eat foods that you enjoy eating, you don't have cheats, anything like that. I never recommend those. But then as far as like actual nutrition, like plans where it's like keto or fasting or paleo or vegan or Mediterranean, whatever type of diet you follow, there's going to be pros and cons to them. And so I would never sit here and say nobody should ever follow keto. I'm never going to say nobody should ever try fasting, right? Because if your lifestyle and your routine and your personal nutrition preferences or food preferences align with that type of diet, then that is the diet that you should follow. So the first thing that I'm looking at when someone wants to start a nutrition plan is, what do you like, right? And also, like, what are your goals? And what does your daily routine look like? Because all of those things are generally going to lead us towards a specific type of diet. If you're somebody who wants to lose weight, you, let's say, are a busy work executive and you don't generally have time to eat until like 11 noon, well, then I might go, okay, well, why don't we try fasting? Because you're not eating in the morning anyways. We're just going to find a cutoff for you at night, and we're going to try that out, and we're going to see if you like that. And then after a couple of weeks, if you don't like that, then we're going to change it to something else. Or if somebody doesn't really like carbs all that much, let's say somebody out there doesn't like carbs. I don't know how that'd be possible, but let's say they don't, and they want to burn fat and they want to lose weight, then I would say, okay, why don't we try something like the keto diet? Because obviously you're not going to be eating carbs, or you have carbs like every 10 days or something like that. And so it really comes down to, what are you going to be able to stick to long term, and what is appropriate for your lifestyle, for your personal interests, and for your goals. And then if somebody doesn't necessarily have a preference on what they want to do, or their life is, let's say, they got all the time in the world and they're not really worried about following anything specifically. Generally, where we lean is a nutrition method called carb cycling.
Mm.
And we found that that just allows people to kind of get the best of both worlds when it comes to carb intake, but also results. Um, and yeah, our clients love it. And I think it's a little difficult in the beginning when you first get started because you are cooking different amounts of food each day, and you do have to make sure that you're tracking those properly, or somebody is tracking that properly for you. But after you do it for a week or two, it gets pretty easy. And like you said, that's why we really lean towards customization of like diet plans.
Yeah.
And that's why we have so many coaches here at VShred, because obviously all the information that you could ever want to find is on the internet. You can learn literally anything on the internet, but it's about, are you going to are you going to um, sort through all of the information on there and figure out exactly what you need to do. And then when something happens, something pops up along the way, or you hit a road bump or something like that, are you going to be able to figure out what you need to adjust, what you need to change to move forward? And also, are you going to be able to hold yourself accountable? And so for all those reasons, that's why we generally recommend working with a coach, and
Yeah.
having somebody to be there for you, show you the way, make adjustments, be that person in your corner to cheer you on as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I love the approach of, first off, making sure it's something that you can stick to long term, and like using the factors of like what you actually enjoy to eat, what what are your goals, obviously, and what can you fit into your daily routine and your lifestyle, and what your schedule looks like. Those are absolutely critical before you even start diving into like the weeds of any kind of diet. So let's go a little bit into carb cycling. If somebody's never heard of what carb cycling is, give us a little overview of carb cycling to start.
Would love to, yeah. And I think it's pretty common for people not to really have ever heard of carb cycling before. I don't know many people. I mean, unless you're like pretty well versed in the different diet plans, you probably just think like everybody's kind of heard of flexible dieting, like if it fits your macros. Everybody's heard of keto. Most people have heard of fasting, obviously vegan, vegetarian. But carb cycling, the reason I like it is because it doesn't necessarily limit what you eat when it comes to like your weekly spread. So day to day, it's going to fluctuate. So for anybody out there who doesn't know what carb cycling is, essentially it is where you um, go through a series of low and high carb days throughout the week. Some people do low, moderate, and high carb days, but basically you break it up per day of the week. And so, like, let's say Monday is a low carb day, you're getting started. And then sometimes you'll go Tuesday, low carb day as well. And then Wednesday, what you'll do is you go into a high carb day, or you could go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as low, moderate, high. And then Thursday, Friday, let's say low, low, Saturday, moderate, Sunday, high carb again. And there's different ways of structuring that. I would say that's probably one of the more optimal ways, just because you are getting 4 low carb days in, and could even make it more if you turn a moderate into a low carb day. But basically, what you're doing is picking days that you're going to have a low carb day. Um, but the beauty of these low carb days, because you might be thinking, well, I'm not going to be having any kind of energy. It's going to be hard to get my calories in because I'm just eating protein. No, the beauty of these low carb days is that you massively increase your intake of healthy fats, of dietary fats.
Mhm.
Right. And so that means that you're eating oils and nuts and seeds and avocados, and you could even do healthy, like fatty proteins like steak or bacon, or just basically anything that is high fat. What you're doing is you are essentially substituting your carb intake for fat intake. And so you're depleting your body's glycogen stores. You are essentially getting rid of your body's primary fuel source, because your body really has 2 fuel sources, right? First is carbs. That's what it's going to depend on first. Second is going to be fats. When you deplete your body of its primary fuel source, it's going to then rely on its secondary fuel source. It's essentially like a backup fuel tank for your body. And so on those low carb days, we're depleting the primary fuel so that your body can focus on burning fat. But then you might be thinking, well, Why wouldn't I just do that every single day? And this is where low carb diets are born. This is where carb free diets are born, because people think that carbs make you fat and cutting carbs makes you lose weight. And so they just cut carbs entirely, like permanently. And first off, not sustainable. And so people don't follow it for longer than like 2 or 3 weeks. Second off, carbs also help to regulate your metabolism. Carbs also help to give you energy. Carbs also help your muscles. Carbs also help your brain fog. And so there's all these different things that carbs help as when it comes to like metabolic effects. And so that's why having those high carb days, or you call them a refeed day, that's why those are so important. And so then what you're doing, so you go, let's say Monday, Tuesday, you went low, low, and then Wednesday, you're going high carb day. So this is the fun day. And this is what makes the diet sustainable, in my opinion, because on that high carb day, you're significantly bumping up your carbs. Let's say you're getting 250, 300 grams of carbs on this high carb day. Now, yes, you are cutting your fats back down, because just as your fats went up, as your carbs went down, your fats are now going to go down as your carbs go up. But essentially, you're getting most of your calories from carbs and protein, because your protein stays pretty consistent across the board. And so, like I said, this is the fun day of the diet, and how, depending on how many high carb days you have throughout the week, these are the fun days, right? You're having carbs at pretty much every single meal. You got energy, your muscles look nice and full. You're feeling good. You're not hungry at all. And you're eating foods that you don't normally associate with the word diet, right? And I think that's probably the biggest part of it, because generally when people think that they want to lose weight, what do? They start cutting calories, and specifically start cutting carbs, and they think that they have to stay away from rice and pasta and potatoes and all these foods that you are going to have in excess on these high carb days. And so in my brain, what I think that does to people is, on that Monday or Tuesday when they're kind of struggling, let's say that they've been on this diet for a couple of weeks now, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have 2 low carb days in a row. Those 2 low carb days in a row are going to be much easier to stick to, because you know you have a high carb day coming in 48 hours, versus if you never think you're allowed to have carbs again. If you
Yeah,
never think you're allowed
restriction
to
is
have
so
carbs again, yeah, you'll just quit right there on the spot.
Yeah, restriction's so much easier when you know there's an end in sight that's somewhat near than if it's everlasting. So completely agree with this and love the concept. Talk to me about when you are structuring out your low carb days, moderate carb days, high carb days, how you adjust your training routines based off of what level of carbs you're consuming on those particular days.
Yeah, great question, because I think this is hugely important for sustainability, right?
yeah.
And also getting the most out of your training. So again, I'm going to kind of back up here. The first thing that you want to figure out with someone's training is, what are they willing to do, right? How much time do they have available? What are they actually capable of doing? What do they like doing? Like, do they like going to the gym, or are they somebody who's got 3 kids and they don't have time to go to the gym, or they can't afford a gym membership, or they live out in the middle of nowhere and there's no gym around them, so they got to work out at home? So you got to figure out first off what they're going to be willing to do, right? And then you figure out, okay, what does this training split kind of look like? Then, yes, you're 100% right. I think best practice is to align the training based off of the diet. Because as I just kind of mentioned, those low carb days, they're not the most fun thing in the world. I'll be completely honest. If you're somebody that likes the keto idea, or you love fats, and like you're not a big carb person anyways, they're not going to be so bad. Me personally, I love carbs. And so low carb days can be tough, right? The high carb days, and so with those low carb days, what you're going to feel is maybe a little bit of a lack of energy. If you are working out, you're going to find that it could be a little tougher. And so generally, when you are structuring your training around this carb cycle, you're going to keep your lighter days, less intense days, to the days that you're not getting the most amount of carbs, right? And so for your training, I would say that, like, if you have lighter cardio days or something like that, or you just have like some body weight workouts, I would keep those to those lower carb days. And then on your high carb days, obviously, like we said, we're going to have way more energy. You're going to feel better. Your muscles are going to be ready to rock. And so those are the days that you're going to be putting your leg days or full body days or just whatever your intense workouts are, I always try to structure them around those specific days, because not only are you going to feel better, but you're also going to get the most out of your workout, because if you do have carbs fueling you for a leg day, you're going to be able to hit legs harder than if you don't have any carbs fueling you.
Yeah.
So yeah, you 100% need to structure. I don't say, shouldn't say need to, but it's beneficial to structure your training around your diet. That way you can get the most out of it.
Yeah, well, and it's just beneficial to like understand, okay, on this particular day when I'm not having that many carbs and I feel like I haven't that many carbs, I don't have to have this high expectation of myself to be able to go out and feel 110% when I go to the gym. So I know that it's going to be a little bit lower intensity. So psychologically, it's really beneficial as well. Let's go into when you're having a high carb day. What in particular are is it things like rice and potatoes? Is it things like pizza? Is it things like veggies? Is it fruits? Like when you're thinking about an optimal high carb day based off of a day, let's say where you're really getting after it in the gym, you're doing an intense strength training workout. What does an optimal high carb day look like for you from a standpoint of the few different meals that you might have that day?
Yeah, good question. And I'm glad you said optimal, because it's really, because my answer to that would have been, well, it's going to come down to what somebody enjoys eating, right?
Yeah.
If somebody hates potatoes, I'm not going to throw potatoes on their plan, right? If
Right.
somebody loves white rice, I'm a person, I actually love white rice. I would eat white rice with every single, I eat it with breakfast. I eat it with my second lunch. I eat it with both of my dinners. And so like I have rice all the time, right? Um, but it's ultimately going to come down to what you like to eat, right? But let's say that there's really no preference. You're just like, I like rice, I like potatoes, I like pasta, I like all the carbs. Okay. Generally, what you're going to lean towards are starchy carbs. Because if you do like, if you do get into like the vegetables, like obviously those are very low caloric, like not calorically dense at all. And so generally, I don't even tell people that they need to track vegetables. I just say, if you want to have vegetables, have at it. I've never heard of anybody getting fat from eating vegetables.
Yeah.
And so go for that. But when you're talking about actually measuring your carb intake, you're obviously going to have to measure anytime that you're eating starchy carbs like potatoes or pastas or anything like that, right? Beans. Um, and so yeah, it can be a mix of a bunch of different things. I would say that it's also need to be a mix of low glycemic index carbs as well as high glycemic index carbs timed at eaten at the right time of the day.
And what would that timing sound like?
Yeah, so I would say right when you wake up, I like to get actually right when you wake up is probably the one time I would say to try to avoid carbs. Just because some people can sometimes feel a little sleepy after eating carbs first thing in the morning. But again, it's going to come down to your overall carb intake and your just plan in general. If you're eating 250 grams of carbs today and that's kind of tough for you and you can't eat big meals, then you might have to have carbs at every single meal. And that's fine. Right. I have carbs for breakfast, but I also know people who have carbs for breakfast and then they need a nap. And so it's going to come down to like personal performance, right?
Yeah.
But generally, I would say high glycemic index carb in the morning if you're going to have carbs in the morning. Get the get the glucose going, right? Get that insulin spiked, and also have that with protein. That's going to help that work better. And then as you're getting ready, like and also depends on when you work out. We got to throw that in there as well, because personally, I work out around, let's say, between 12 to 2 is when I get to the gym. And so I'm trying to have 2 meals before I go to the gym. And then what I'm going to have like as my pre-workout meal is going to be more of a like fruit focused smoothie, something that's going to be a fast acting carb again. It's going to be able to digest fast. It's going to be able to pump my muscles with glycogen, fuel me for my workout. But it's also going to be able to digest fast. So it's not going to be something that's sitting in my system while I'm lifting. And so I have that probably an hour, hour and a half before I work out. Then crush your workout. And then after your workout, again, I like to lean into fast acting carbs, just so that you can get that effect from the insulin spike, and you can get everything again rocking with your muscles. You want to kickstart recovery as much as possible, and that's also going to help with the protein intake that you're having. And then everything after that, I would say lean more into the lower glycemic index carbs, something that's going to digest a little bit slower. It's going to focus more on sustained energy. This is stuff like whole wheat pasta. This is stuff like brown rice. Even sweet potatoes, those are a little lower on the glycemic index than regular potatoes. Um, just things that generally you don't associate with like energy and then crash.
Yeah.
And then I would say last, the meal before bed. If you do have a meal before bed, I would say go more again into high glycemic index so that it can digest fast, so that it's not digesting while you're sleeping, because obviously you don't want anything digesting while you're sleeping. You would ideally stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed so that you can really get the growth hormone effects from deep sleep. You can actually get into deep sleep and get the effects from it. But yeah, I mean, but again, it's ultimately going to come down to what you want to eat. And like you mentioned, like, does this mean pizza? Yes, this can 100% mean pizza, because what's more important to me when somebody's following a diet is, are they going to be able to do this long term? And if somebody's on a high carb day, you have some flexibility in how many carbs you're eating, because you're eating a lot. And so if you do want to have pizza and that takes, let's say, the majority of your carbs, fine. The rest of your meals need to be adjusted around that. Sure, like you don't want to, if you're trying to get 250 grams of, let's say 200 on low end, 200 grams of carbs, and you get 80 from pizza. Okay, you only have 120 for the rest of the day. So
Yeah.
we're not going over that. So you need to adjust everything else, but you 100% can have pizza or fries and a burger, or these foods that you don't generally think you're allowed to eat. You can 100% have those. It ultimately is going to come down to what is the overall intake, and making sure that you don't go over that carb number, make sure you don't go over that fat number. And protein, I always say you can go over a little bit. If you're going to go over anything, you can go over protein.
Right.
But again, it's going to come down to overall calories more than anything.
I'm gonna ask probably maybe one more on the carb cycling question, and then we'll finish off with fitness. When it comes to if you're in a like fat loss phase or a maintenance phase, is it a matter of still doing carb cycling regardless of what you're in, and just making sure your calories are in check and the macro quantities are correct, and you're still doing carb cycling, or does it look different for you whether you're in maintenance or a fat loss phase?
Yeah, good question. So I think, yeah, fat loss, I would say the what you're following can definitely change depending on the phase of goal that you're in. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like you said, if you're just getting started and your goal is to lose, let's say 50 pounds, then something like carb cycling is going to benefit you hugely, right? Now, if you had a 50-pound weight loss goal and you lost it already, and now you're like, I'm weighing 180 pounds, I feel good, I look good, I just want to maintain this and then continue to change my body composition and fill out in the areas that I want to fill out in, then it's going to come down to, okay, what are your thoughts on carb cycling? Like, do you find this as something that you love doing? Like, do you enjoy this? Is this something that you can continue to stick to, even though you're no longer motivated by an end goal? Because, yeah, if somebody enjoys carb cycling, then it can be a tool that somebody could use literally forever. It's a great diet. There's a bunch of studies around it. It works. And it's pretty sustainable if it fits your lifestyle and if it fits your interests, right? The only goal I would say it's probably not optimal for is muscle building or bulking, just because you are going to have those low carb days. And so if you are trying to put on as much muscle as possible, you're trying to bulk, you're naturally a hard gainer, then you're going to want to lean into carbs pretty heavily,
Yeah.
like every single day. And so that's the only one that I would say was it's a little weird for. But then if carb cycling was just this thing that you were following because you really wanted to get results, and now that you've gotten your results, you want something that you would be more sustainable for your life, because cutting carbs on 4 days a week is not your thing. You hate it every single time. Then I would say lean into something like if it fits your macros or flexible dieting. Just basically getting your set number of macronutrients and tracking those every single day, or having a coach to tell you what you need to eat to hit those macros every single day. And then just doing that. And the beauty of that is the whole term, if it fits your macros, is essentially saying you can eat whatever you want if it fits your macros. And so I don't truly think that people should follow that like religiously, because obviously if you have if you're allowed to eat 200 grams of carbs today and you have 200 grams of donuts every single day for your carbs, then you're not going to get as good results as if you have white and brown rice and whole wheat pasta and potatoes and vegetables, right? But yeah, it does allow flexibility, and that's where the flexible dieting comes from, because yes, you do eat foods that you don't normally get to eat. And the thing is, it gets a lot easier once you've lost that weight, because like losing weight's tough. Like there's a lot of stuff to figure out. There's a lot of barriers to overcome. Your lifestyle factors are tough to get out of. If you don't have a community around you supporting you, it can be even harder. So losing weight is really hard. But after you lose the weight, and this is why I wish people would just find a routine that works for them and just stick to it over time, because what they're going to find is that it's not always that hard. Once they do it for a certain amount of time and they build that routine and they find something that works for them and they get into this um like I said, routine of like I go to the grocery on this day and I know exactly where everything that I get is at the grocery, and I cook on these days and I'm really good at doing this now, and I'm much faster than I used to be, and I know what days I'm working out and I know exactly what I'm doing for that workout, and I'm getting better at these workouts. I can make them more intense. I'm stepping things up a little bit. You're seeing progress. The people around you are used to you being this new fitness person, and people might even be joining in on it with you now. um, Once you do it for a little while and you've lost that weight, it becomes so much easier for so many different reasons. And so when somebody does, let's say, hit their weight loss goal or whatever their goal was, then I would say, yeah, we can take a step back and we can go, okay, we don't have to be as strict. Now, I don't think you should get loose with it, but you don't have to be as strict as you were when you needed to lose 50 pounds, because 50 pounds is a lot of weight to lose and you had to be really strict. Otherwise, it wasn't going to happen. You
Yeah.
probably had hormonal issues. You probably had metabolic issues. You probably just had lifestyle factors that were playing into why you were overweight, that you really had to adjust and get used to not caving to. But after you get rid of those, then it's like, okay, you don't look at the McDonald's drive-through like you used to. And so that's not something that we really need to worry about. And so if on a high, or let's say on a random Wednesday, you do want a Big Mac, go get a Big Mac, right? Just account for it in your calories. But then that allows you that you realize that, like, hey, if I do have a craving for a certain food that I absolutely love, I can have it. And also, I have a better relationship with food now. And so me having this one Big Mac doesn't get me all pissed off at myself, where then I have a bad meal after because I already screwed my diet. And then the next day I continue that trend. And then all of a sudden I look up and it's been 3 weeks and I haven't had a healthy meal, and I stopped going to the gym, and all of a sudden I've gained 20 pounds back. That's what we're trying to avoid here.
Yeah.
So if you can fix your relationship with food there, then everything becomes a lot easier. And so, yeah, I would say generally, if somebody comes to us and they want to lose a bunch of weight and they have no preference on what to follow, we're going to get them on a carb cycle, right?
Mm.
After they lose that weight, I would say I'd say the easiest diet out there is flexible dieting, just because like there are no specific foods you have to have. There are no specific foods you can't have, right? There's a specific number of macros that you're aiming for, and you don't have to do it perfectly. I always say 90%. If you can get 90% accuracy with your carbs, fats, and proteins, then you're going to get pretty good results.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, flexible dieting, I think, is kind of the way to go.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, we'll finish off with a fitness question here with the little time that we got left. If a lot of people who are listening might be the type of person who wants to lose like 5 to 15 pounds, but they're also really busy. From a fitness perspective, if I'm somebody who wants to lose 5 to 15 pounds, lose body fat, maintain, or maybe build a little bit of muscle, but I only have like 4 times a week where I can work out for about 45 minutes, what are the things that I'm going to get the biggest bang for my buck? Is it I need to do strength training 2 times a week, cardio 2 times a week? What kind of cardio, what kind of strength training, what exercises are best? Like if you were coaching somebody who is 4 times a week, 45 minutes, and had that 5 to 15 pound weight loss, what would be like a good routine breakdown from a fitness perspective? Obviously, it always depends on what the person likes to do, but let's kind of like take that aside and the person is kind of open and receptive to whatever it is that you give them.
Beautiful. A client that's open and receptive to whatever we give them is a diamond in the rough. So I love it. But I would say 4 days a week, 45 minutes is the um time allowed here, right? I would say we're leaning completely into resistance training.
Okay.
Completely. I would say we're not even going to bother with cardio right now. Down the road, if 4 days a week, 45 minutes a day, 44 lifts for 45 minutes a day isn't doing it, then we're going to try to adjust some things and maybe throw in a little bit of maybe throw in 10, 15 minutes of like low intensity, steady state cardio at the end, or maybe like a 10-minute hit workout at the end of some of these workouts. So we can make adjustments based on how your body responds to just the lifting. But I think people who want to lose weight highly undervalue weightlifting
Yeah.
because they're like, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm not trying to put on weight. Right. And so they're scared to lift weights when they don't realize that lifting weights is how you burn calories. Lifting weights is how you burn fat. It's how you lose weight because you're not only, people don't realize that like a 45-minute lift burns more calories than a 45-minute jog if you're doing it right. Right. And so you're going to burn just as many calories, if not more, during your lift, as long as the intensity is there. If you're doing like super heavy lifting with 5-minute rests, obviously it's going to be a little bit different than if you're doing supersets every single workout and you're sweating your butt off. But if you're working out with intensity and you're doing it so that you can get the most done in the shortest amount of time, so your training is like optimized, right? Then you're going to burn a bunch of calories while you do it. But then the beauty of resistance training that people kind of overlook sometimes, I think, is that you're building muscle. And people realize that, but they don't realize what building muscle means for the effects that it has on their body. Because we all have that friend and I say we all have that friend, this friend is me. We all have that friend who is in good shape and sometimes seemingly just eats whatever they want, right? They have ice cream and they have pizza and they have burgers and they have all these foods. And people are like, how do you eat all of this? And you are in great shape. Well, the reason why is, well, first off, I work my butt off at the gym. And most of the time I am very strict with my nutrition, but I have a lot of muscle. I have a bunch of muscle mass on my body. And what people don't realize is that the more muscle you have on your body, the more calories your body consumes to fuel that muscle. And so if you have, let's say, 50 pounds of lean muscle on your body versus 100 pounds of lean muscle on your body, you're going to burn twice as many calories than that person who has less muscle. Therefore, that means you can eat more and not gain weight. So I would have somebody lean pretty heavily into resistance training. And I would probably go, if it's a 4 day thing, I would say we'd start with we'd probably go upper body first, lower body second, or sorry, full body first, lower body second, upper body third, and then finish with full body again. And then probably depending on what their life looks like and what days are best for them, I would probably want like a 2-day rest between those two full body workouts on each side, just so that they can recover from those workouts. And yeah, I mean, that can be a mix of free weights if they have access to a gym with machines. This can also be things they can get an adjustable, like adjustable dumbbells that they can get at their house where they go from 5 pounds to 60 pounds, and you can get a bunch done with that. This can also be bands. I've gotten phenomenal workouts with just resistance bands. It would shock you if you are creative enough with your banded workouts. They are hard. And then even with body weight. Do I think body weight's optimal here? No. I do think that adding extra resistance on top of your body weight would be smart because you obviously are going to overload the muscle more than what a body weight squat. If you have 135 pounds on your back, you're going to overload your legs more than if you just are body weight squatting. But yeah, I would have them lean into resistance training more than anything. I think the you get the most bang for your buck when it comes to resistance training. And then, like I said, if their body isn't responding like we hoped it would, or they're putting on muscle, but they're not really cutting fat. First off, we need to look at their diet because most of that 10, 15 pounds that they want to lose is going to come from nutrition, right? You only burn 15% of your daily calories from working out, if that. And so like you're not burning that many calories from your workout anyways. What we're trying to do is burn a few calories, feel good, but also put on a little bit of muscle so that your metabolism, your resting energy expenditure can go up. And that's where the most calories are burned. And that's why resistance training is so beneficial. But again, if you're not getting the results, then yeah, we can talk about throwing in some HIIT workouts at the end or some low intensity steady state cardio. I can talk the client into doing a 5th day that's only cardio, and we're just doing like an hour walk or something like that, like an uphill walk. But yeah, I generally lean towards resistance training more than anything.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, like the two things that you said, one, muscle mass will help that basal metabolic rate be a little bit higher, so your energy expenditure is at a higher level. And then the energy intake is mainly going to be obviously the nutrition side of things, so making sure you're dialed in there is going to be the biggest bang for your buck for that, losing 5 to 15 pounds or whatnot. Well, Vince, this has been awesome. I know people have learned a lot. Hopefully they've taken a lot of notes on carb cycling, on the training and everything like that. You guys can go follow Vince on social media at VShred. You can also go to VShred.com. Where else should people go to learn more about you and support what all you got going on?
Honestly, the website's perfect. We got our free body type quiz right there at the top of that, which kind of matches you with the right program for you that we offer. We have dozens of programs, and then also we have coaches. We have over 400 coaches on staff who work with people depending on what their specific goals are or what their problems are, what their limitations are. And so like if somebody just had a baby and they are trying to lose that baby weight, then we got moms who have been through that who can coach them, right? Or if somebody has low test or whatever it is, whatever your goal is, we have coaches that can help you, and they want to help you, and they actually care about helping you, and they're very good at what they do. And so yeah, website's perfect, vshred.com. On any social media, just search VShred and you'll find us.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, man. Well, it's been truly awesome today. I appreciate your approach to nutrition. I appreciate your approach to fitness, and I know a lot of people learned a lot today. So y'all make sure you go follow him at VShred and check out vshred.com as well to dive in a little bit more. But Vince, it's been awesome today, man. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
What an awesome conversation with Vince. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you hit the follow button. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe. We are continuing to put out some of the most life-changing content out there to help you achieve your health and fitness goals. So make sure you hit subscribe. And if you're looking for a kickstart with your fitness motivation and looking to lose 5 to 20 pounds of body fat, then try out our personalized program for free by going to nickcarrier.com/free trial. My 3 biggest takeaways from Vince today are the following. Number 1, don't just pick a diet to pick a diet. Pick a nutrition philosophy that works for your food preferences, your goals, and your lifestyle and routine. Number 2, carb cycling can be an effective and sustainable way to lose weight. If you can monitor your carbohydrate intake on certain days and line that up with your training routine, it can lead to great results. Number 3, if you have 4 days a week to train and your goal is fat loss, it's not cardio all 4 days. It might just be resistance training all 4 days. Muscle building is a critical step in this weight loss process, especially when we're talking about long-term sustainable weight loss and optimal health. Having a flexible diet, lining up your high activity days with your carbohydrate intake, and resistance training will help you become a leaner, stronger, and healthier version of yourself, and ultimately will help you get closer and closer to your best you.